Alright everyone, welcome back. So, we continue on in our standings predictions today with the Central Division. So, we did the two Eastern Conference standing predictions, so you can go check that out if you want. But for this one, we're doing the Central Division, and Pacific will be tomorrow. So, Central, obviously I'd argue it's one of the weaker divisions in the NHL, but regardless, there is still some question about how this division's really going to go. So, we're going to get straight into it here. Starting off with number 8, and for the second straight year, I don't know why I put up 1. For the second straight year, they are going to be dead last in their division. And my projections, it is the Chicago Blackhawks. Last year I had them 8th, and as a result, they finished 8th because it was expected for them to be really, really bad. And they were really, really bad. But obviously it paid off. They got the first overall selection in this past year's draft, and they selected Connor Bedard. Amazing selection. Definitely going to help them out a lot, but they're not there yet. They aren't there yet. I don't know why people think that they are, just based off of one player. They're not there yet. Their offensive core is okay now. It's better. Their defense is horrid, and their goaltending is also horrid. So they're not a team that's going to contend yet. And, you know, a few more years, probably 2 more years of being bad, being last in the division, and then they'll make their comeback. Unless if some other team has, like, a really bad year, like an atrocious season, then Chicago would be, like, 7th. But regardless, they aren't expected to be any more than 8th for at least the next 2 more years, if I'm being honest. Even though people do think they will be, they're not. Number 7, I have Nashville, the Nashville Predators. Last year I had them 4th, and they finished 5th and missed the playoffs. And it actually got a lot of controversy for where I had them in the standings. But here's my thing with Nashville. I feel like they're in a weird spot right now. They acquired guys like Nyquist, O'Reilly, which help, yeah. But they still are relatively young. They have a lot of younger players in the lineup, and I think this year is just going to be brutal for them. Especially if Saros starts off bad, then yeah, they will be pretty brutal. But you know, you could argue maybe they finished 6th, but I can't see them finishing, you know, above 5th. But like, just realistically, I just don't see them as a team right now that is going to contend for a playoff spot. And that stinks to say, but they're just not there at this point. Number 6, I have the St. Louis Blues. Last year I had them 3rd, and they finished 6th. And it was a year where St. Louis didn't look very good. Like, to start off the season, it was a very roller coaster type year. Then they picked it up towards the end of the season. And I do think they will be better, but it's going to be another year of just not in the playoffs. And is it a bad thing? Not really. I think they have a pretty young team. It feels like they are a little bit younger. My only concern is obviously everyone else's concern. It's the goaltending. And that's obviously been something we've talked about many, many times before on the channel. But realistically, I think right now they're 6th place. But when guys like Stenberg come in, when guys like Dalibor Dvorsky come, and, you know, other guys and such, I do think they will be back in the playoffs as early as next season, not this season. And especially if Joel Hofer plays well and takes that starting role from Bennington, then maybe they'll have a better shot at making the playoffs for sure. But right now, I see them at 6th. And yes, I have the Arizona Coyotes finishing 5th in the Central Division this coming year. Last year I had them 7th, and they finished 7th, but it is expected for them to finish 5th, in my opinion. I think this team has had, you know, this is the second of the bad years has gone past. Last year, the first year they were 8th in the division. Second year they were 7th, and this year they've had a lot of adds to their lineup, and I think they're a very young and fun team. That's why I think they'll finish 5th. 5th may be a stretch. It might be a little bit of a stretch, and you could argue there is some bias in there. Yes, I am a Coyotes fan, for those who don't know. There may be some bias in there, but I really do think that we could see a huge step in the right direction for Arizona this coming season. They showed it last year. If the right things go right for them, they should be. But it's not expected for playoffs. I really don't expect Arizona to make it there at this point in time. But definitely it should be a big step in the right direction for the team. Number 4, I have the Winnipeg Jets. Last year I had them 6th, and they finished 4th. Now, last year was a year for Winnipeg where they started off the first half of the season amazing. They were absolutely terrific. And then second half of the year, they plummeted down to the wild card spot and got lost in 5 games. It was like the worst fall off I've ever seen. And it's brutal. And there are rumors where they're going to have to move some guys. They made out well in the Dubois trade. I will admit that. They did very well in the Pierre-Luc Dubois deal. And there is some rumors, too, that Scheifele and Hellebuyck could get traded. That could happen soon. But I think what Winnipeg is going to try and do is see how their assets do right now and then deal them at the deadline. I think that might be what they're going to try and do. But yeah, Winnipeg, they're in a weird spot. We could see them tear it all down this coming season. Very realistic. I said that in my last year's video. But obviously, we'll find out if that does happen. Number 3, then, moving into the top 3, I had the Minnesota Wild. Last year, I had them 5th. Don't know what the hell I was thinking, and then they finished 3rd. I have been famous for lowering or underrating the Minnesota Wild. That's one of the things that I am famous for. I don't know why, necessarily. Sometimes I just don't feel like the team is that good. And realistically, they've been first-round exits for the past couple of years, and that's at their own fault with the Parise and Sutter contracts. Once those deals expire, though, they will be a better team. It's just going to take some time. But, yeah, hopefully Gustafsson has another good year. They have some good pieces there on the forward core and the defense. They're overall a pretty young team, and they're going to have even more guys come up into the lineup very, very soon. And just overall, Minnesota, they're in, like, that weird spot, kind of, but they're still heading in the right direction for sure, and they will make the playoffs. They should be a lock for the playoffs. Number 2, I have the Dallas Stars. Last year I had Dallas finishing 2nd, and they finished 2nd, so I got that one right as well. But yeah, Dallas, realistic cup contenders. You could argue 1st in the division. I wouldn't disagree with you. I'm going to say that 1st and 2nd spot between them and you-know-who is going to be very competitive, and it's going to come right down to the nail like it did this past year between those two teams. But yeah, Dallas, amazing team, great goaltending, good defense, great offensive core. Just they have everything they need to contend for a Stanley Cup. And I like their odds right now of going all the way for sure. And they are one of my favorites. And realistically, with some of the guys they have coming up too, like Maverick Borg, Logan Stankoven, etc., they have a realistic chance at winning a cup in the next 3 years, which is great. Finally, at number 1, I have the Colorado Avalanche. Last year, I had them finishing 1st, and they finished 1st as a result. So that was great. But yeah, Colorado, they started off the year very unlucky. It was a very unlucky year. And they obviously fought their way back to 1st in that division to face Seattle, the jersey over there. Can't tell with the camera, but regardless, yeah. And that series was very unlucky, faced a lot of injuries, some suspensions, some controversy. It was a very unlucky year in Colorado. I think this year, if they're better, I think they definitely do have a shot at going for another Stanley Cup. And as well as that, too, like, you get back Nichushkin. You got a guy in Jonathan Drouin who has had a few very rough years in Montreal and has a decent chance at making a comeback in Colorado. I think, honestly, just Landeskog is a concern, yeah. But I'm not entirely too worried about it. But regardless, yeah, Colorado won. That is my Central Division predictions. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you all for watching. Tomorrow will be the Pacific Division, so stay tuned for that. But regardless, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.